Hi, dear audience and students. Today we would be discussing Longinus. This is an essay on the sublime by Longinus. Longinus is a critic. In this short video, we would be first discussing the general introduction of Longinus and then principal sources of sublime and Longinus as a critic and what is sublime means sublimity, the literary taste, and then we would be discussing general influence of Longinus on modern criticism. So first of all, when we talk of his birth and national origin, that is very controversial. Means he is of unknown, but somewhere he belongs from the Greece and that area. So Longinus garners an important place in the literary history because of his treatise of essay. I mean, this is an essay on the sublime. So he traces out, probably therefore he may be from the Greece, as he mostly uses the language and the places and the things in his work that belongs to the Greece and the Greek. Like for example, he used different quotations from Hebrew, and the time which he speaks, that is also, for example, the characters he speaks, they are of the Greek, making him the first literary critic to borrow from a different literary traditions and earning for him a right to be called the first comparative critic in the literary history. Means he was it shows that he was so much well read that he has been comparing the different things from the different cultures as well. So unlike Plato, Aristotle and Horace, who focus, means all these focus, Plato, Aristotle and Horace focus on the work's essence. Means from here it means that what all these critics, Plato, Aristotle and Horace, they have been focusing on the work's essence, means what the work, mean literary work, have an impact on the audience, and the constituent parts of the work and the literary taste. While Longinus concentrates on the single element of the text, and he considers that only the single element of the text can create the greatness. So he is the first critic to define a literary classic. Means the classicness, not classicism, but the classic literary taste would be very important in an analysis of a literary text. One cannot accurately judge a literary work, he argues, unless one is exceedingly well read. This is very interesting. Means it is very much necessary that the reader should be very classic and well read in his thinking and ideology. Means if the reader is not well read, he is not very good in his senses, then how he would be analyzing a literary text. So to be a critic, or to be a good evaluator and interpreter of a literary text, the reader should be well read. While Plato, Aristotle, and Horace, they all have been believing that the plot is very much important. The other parts of the literary text are important. For example, if we take a short story for its analysis from the perspective of Aristotle, Plato and Horace, they would be focusing on the characters of the short story, on the theme of the short story, on the narrative style of the short story, like that. While Longinus considers that only if you are well aware of, from here, well read, never I means that a man who have read a lot of books, he would be a good interpreter, or he would be a good critic as well. It's not necessarily. He more focus on the well trained mind of the critic as well. Means Longinus considers that well read man would, with good sense and the taste as well, would be evaluating that text more sophisticatedly as compared to the other. A well read critic can evaluate, this is the line uh, uh, Longinus, and evaluate and recognize what is great and what Homer calls sublime. Means a well read critic would be able to trace out the sublimity. For that, sublimity basically the word meaning sublime means the high, uh, good, refined. For that is really great, which bears a repeated examination and which it is difficult for, or rather impossible to withstand, and the memory of which is strong and hard to efface. Means the memory of something cannot be erased. Efface means erased. So, the thing which is repeatedly examined and traced out, that remains forever and it's not easily erased. Homer asserts that all the readers are innately capable of recognizing the sublime. This is very interesting. As for nature has appointed us men to be no base or ignoble animals, for she implants, if she refers to the nature, in our souls the unconquerable love of whatever is elevated and more divine than we. Is it not so interesting? Homer says that every man is naturally is the lover of sublimity. Means wherever we see the sublimity, not only in the literary text, means man is more inclined uh, to the, for example, if he is constructing his own house, so he would be tracing or he would be creating some sources for sublime. He would be making certain good tiles in his house. He would be making good maps in his house. And similarly, the person who is in some other profession, he would be trying to be more elevated, more uh, sublime in his thought. Even thoughts are very much important and necessary as well. But similarly, as is the case of intellectuals, even men try to speak more of their good emotions, of the good will. So by all this argument, we are of the view that man is more interested in sublimity, in art, in emotions, in their will, in the intellect, and this is given by the divine. We know that we have been touched by the sublime. So, by that, uh, Longinus considers that there are the five principal sources of sublimity. That means that from where the sublimity comes. One is the grandeur of the thought, other is the capacity of the strong emotions. Means we would be sublime, and for that sublimity in the piece of art we should have a grandeur of thought, means great ideas. We should think in great themes and great language. And the next source of sublimity is the capacity for strong emotions, means the man should be able to bear the capacity of strong emotions. If we take the Urdu text, Mir Anisuddabirs, that they are written on the incident of Karbala, so there seems that they hold a strong emotions for that event and the representation of that event. And third source should be the appropriate use of the figure of speech. Figure of speech are basically, the ornaments of language, and appropriate figure of speech are necessary for the creation of meaning and impact on the readers. And then the nobility of the dictions, means if we are choosing good and great language for the diction, it would be creating more impact on the readers. And then the dignity of compositions are the happy blend of the proceeding of the four elements, means all these elements should be arranged in the best orders. The number one means the grandeur thought, the capacity of strong emotion, the appropriate use of the figure of the speech, and the nobility of the diction. All these should be mixed and blended in a very good and very harmonious manner. Then it would be creating sublimity in the text. So the interlinkage of all these elements is very much necessary for a good sense of sublimity in the text. This is all about Longinus. We would be discussing in detail as well, one by one, all these elements. So by this we see that On Sublime is a very important work of the Longinus, and up to the 18th century it got much recognition and importance, and it was quoted and debated in the most public authors. Means in 18th century mostly people have been talking about Longinus. Still Longinus is considered very much important and the very first romantic critic. Means what he has outlined for a literary text, that's very much necessary, and it's very much basic as well, emphasizing the author, the work itself, and the reader response. Means he has basically initiated 3 points. Means author of the literary text is important, work itself is important, and the reader response means he has initiated the reader response theory. As he focused that the reader is more important, he is going to interpret. As if we say that the major function of literary criticism is to evaluate, to judge, and to interpret the literary text, then definitely if the critic is not good read, is not well read, then how he would be interpreting? If the critic is biased one, he has his own complexes, then how he would be neutral to a literary text? So from the perspective of Longinus, it is very much necessary that the critic should be well read. Therefore he gives the reader response theory as well. Longinus' critical method foreshadows the new criticism, reader response theory. Reader response theory basically propagates that the author is dead. Someone who writes the book, he is dead. He is not with his text. Now at the moment, the text and the reader, they are interacting with one another. So the reader is basically interacting with the text, not with the authors. The thoughts of the author of that text are coming to the readers through that book or through that language, what he has written in the book. So the point of interaction of the transformation of the meanings are between the reader and then that of the textbook, which is in the hands of the reader. So reader is more important, how he is taking the meaning from the text. A new criticism, reader response, and the other school of the 20th century criticism, he has been very much influential in this school of thoughts as well. So we have discussed in this video 2 points, three or 4 points. The following one, that Longinus more emphasize on the to be well read or well read readiness or the good mind of the critic. Horace, Aristotle, and Plato, they focus on other elements of the text, while Longinus focus on the single element of the criticism, and that is to be well readiness of the critic. And then he has recognized the 4 elements of 5 elements of sublimity, which makes the text great, and he has been the central figure in the criticism, and he has influenced the upcoming modern criticism like new criticism, reader response theory as well. Goodbye.